Hello, you amazing people. You're listening to the Marketing and Coffee Podcast, the show that brings you the latest in marketing, especially in the UAE market, with your host, Lijo Etup.
Welcome to the last episode of Podcast with Lijo in the year 2020. What a year. I'm sure that all of you would have gone through a lot of challenges, new learnings. One of the biggest learnings for me has been through all the interviews that I have done through my podcast. And I'm sure all you listeners would have had some value that you've given and taken from this podcast. Coming to what I want to cover in this podcast, though it's very difficult, there were 32 episodes. Most of them were interviews. It's very difficult to summarize what were the key takeaways, 20 key takeaways that I would like to leave you with. Not in order of importance, but let me just try to address different parts of digital marketing that I covered through my podcast. Number one, quality of followers takes precedence over quantity. In my recent post on my agency page, Prodigy Connect, I did post about how you should not ask your friends and families to follow your page. That found huge resonance. And one of the podcast episodes with Devasys Audi from Nokia and reinforced this, why the quality of your followers matters more than the quantity. And this is something that a lot of the business owners do not get. More followers does not mean more business. But yes, more quality followers could mean better business, better engagement. Because you do not want people to follow you because you did some competition, you did some quizzes. Those are people who are hunting for quizzes, who are looking at competitions. That really is not something that you want in the long run. So, quality over quantity. Second one, assortment of products, pricing, experience, and marketing engine is what drives e-commerce. Once a customer wants a certain product, you bring to the customer on your website, looking at a certain product, you have to have a range of product that satisfies his needs. If your product range is not enough to satisfy his or her need, then there will be an immediate bounce. And once that service is taken care of in terms of product, then it comes like, what is the pricing of the product? Are you competitive? And unfortunately, very few categories of e-commerce are left where there is no competition. So there is a pricing factor, and there is a trade-off that the consumer does in his mind, depending on the brand from where he's shopping from e-commerce. And then it's about the matter of experience. Does it have videos, images? Does it tell a story of the product, or having the specs, or all those critical ratings and reviews? Consumers are eventually looking for validation of the product that they're buying. And if your website does not give that validation in terms of the product and having that experience on the website, it's a tough sell. And then finally, the marketing engine. Irrespective of how good the product is, if your marketing engine does not work, it really does not give you revenues. Now, when I say marketing engine, it's not just paid. There's organic part also. I'll come to that later. Number three, you cannot say offline, online consumer. Now there is no online consumer. Earlier there used to be this consumer buys online. So there is no more online consumer. It's all omnichannel. The same customer who chooses to buy irrespective of the channels. She prefers on that day at that time. So product pricing, communication, availability, events has to be across all platforms in the calendar, the seasons, the events. So there is no online customer anymore. There is no offline customer anymore. It's the omnichannel customer. And that customer can be at any point of time, online or offline, at your store or off the store. Number four, retention. I had recently, maybe a couple of months back, I had written about a post about how I went to a gym and this showed real low interest of trying to retain. They say the cost of getting back a customer once he goes out from an e-commerce website is probably 5 times more than you would spend acquiring that customer. And how do you make sure that you retain the customer and make sure you make him come back, buy again and again? That's how you increase the lifetime value, because you have spent certain amount of money acquiring the customer. And if you're not spending time and effort to make sure that there is a lifetime value, or even for that matter, first time value, how do you make sure there's a recommendation engine that increases the purchase value? They say that 75% of the users watch movies based on the Netflix recommendation. And 35% of the value of Amazon sales comes from recommendation engine. Now, a lot of people say that, okay, these are big brands. How does it make a difference to me as a small e-commerce company? It makes a huge difference. And there are tools available. There are platforms available. There are recommendation engines, which is useful for smaller brands. So it's important to increase the lifetime value, retention, and the first time value. Number 5, influencer. And number 6 is also influencer. But the first point amongst influencers is that consumers want authenticity. You want people to talk about it. One, you have to have an influence. But the ability to say that what they're saying, therefore people listen and we still be authentic to the brand is very important. If the moment there's a disconnect, no matter how many million followers you have, 100,000 followers you have, that influencer program does not work. Number 6. So how does the influencer program work for that matter? I understand the authenticity, but once I assume that it's authentic, influencer marketing is half science and half art. It's a lot of judgment calls and creativity involved. So you can take a influencer and make sure you build a story around your brand. It is important that you have a good brand fit between the influencer and your brand. Number 7, recency, frequency, and monetary value of customers. It just is how this is one of the most important part of e-commerce. How recently have they brought? What is the kind of frequency that they're buying, and what is the monetary value that they're generating? You keep these 3 things in mind, and that would make sure that if somebody has not bought in the last 2 months, you have to find the reason why they have not bought and generate automation that will make sure that you remind that customer at given periods of time to come back and buy. And the number of times that they buy in a month. So I split the audiences into 3. So are they active customer, the passive customer, they're dormant. The lesser the dormant customers you have, the better in terms of revenue. And what is the revenue they're bringing? What is the average order value? Are they buying small ticketing size? How do I increase the order value? So make sure that your recency, frequency, and monetary value of the customers is taken care of. Number 8, brand needs to be where the customers are. I keep getting this question as a digital marketer or a marketer. Should I do TikTok? Should I do Twitter? Should I be doing SEO? There's so much clients come and ask me. The first question that you need to ask yourself is, where is the customers? If your customer is on TikTok, so be it. So you need to make sure that you create content for TikTok, providing an interface to what the customers need to interact with the brand. You can't just fire and expect that it will hit. Everything is not a silver. Of course, there's a certain bit of testing that is involved. You can do a lot of A/B testing, but have a fair assessment and make sure that you are there. A lot of my restaurant friends want to drive traffic to their website, but the customers is on third-party websites or third-party apps like Zomato or Talabar, like delivery. You cannot change that consumer behavior because that gives convenience. And I think there has been a learning curve in that industry. And so with so many other brands, the marketplaces like Noon, like Amazon. Amazon is one of the biggest search engines where customer just goes there to search for a certain product and just completely bypasses the Google search engine. Number 9, this may run in contradiction to what I said in number 8, but infinitely more customers, it's important for bigger brands, for the customers from a branding perspective, from a marketing perspective, less from a sales perspective, who are loyal customers to the brand, that you give them access to a channel that they can interact, that gives them brand as opposed to other third-party marketplaces. And this came through in my interview with Shrikant for Pizza Hut. And the fact that they have an e-commerce where the loyal customers can keep coming back and buying from there. So you control the brand experience. And that's the reason, one of the biggest reasons why Shopify continues to grow, because a lot of the smaller brands also want to control that shopping experience. Number 10. So AI is essentially a tool which will help you make better, efficient, and faster decisions. Now, as my interview with Himanshu said, the example that he gave was a hammer can be used to kill someone, right? So it's like a hammer. So in the prehistoric times, I don't want a hammer because it can be used to kill someone. Of course, AI can misuse, and there needs to be intelligent regulation systems to check that. But it is a very essential tool and to make you make this certain decision. I think AI is the biggest innovation since maybe even the wheels, because the consumer or the marketer does not have to think a lot of stuff. A lot of the stuff can be automated, whereas he uses his head and his brains for something more valuable. Number 11, keep it short. Customers and consumers do not have much of bandwidth or with the overload of information in media. So keep it short, no matter where you're posting. Consumers do not have, if you're submitting a report to your, as a marketer, you're submitting a report to your client, make sure it's just one page. If you're creating a social media post, make sure that you don't create a content that just takes more than 3 to 4 seconds for a consumer to absorb. And in that 3 to 4 seconds, you do not make him work hard to think about it. Number 12. So we have interactions with customers have become extremely personal. And going back to my previous point of how AI provides that role, it needs to be hyper personal. But at the same time, the machine learning has to be such that the learning is happening at a global level, so that you keep improving. The experience to the customer has to be personal, but the machine has to learn so that they can give a more holistic picture of how all that personalization adds up to the story. Number 13, experiential ecosystem is not supposed to be a function of the UX UI team. It has to become the culture of the organization. Every element needs to be experienced, driven through your UX, through your web journey, through your checkouts. If done successfully as an omnichannel, I think the experience on the web can be equal or better than the physical retail. Through your last mile checkouts, through your last mile production, everything. So make sure if you're looking at giving a consumer experience every step of the way, right from the ordering to the delivery, there is an experience involved. It is not just the responsibility of the marketing team or the UX UI team. Number 14, the cycle of acquisition, retention, and growth. You acquire, you retain, you grow. At any point of time, you feel that this does not work, or you are acquiring and your retention. It goes back to my point of creating lifetime value. But the differentiation is that the growth marketing has to go through every step of the funnel. Think growth marketing, stop thinking digital marketing. Number 15, everybody is trying to hunt the same shopper through different routes, and more importantly, with competitions building around those resources. The indirect cost of acquiring the shopper, which goes into discounting or which goes into the entry level, has gone up by a lot. Number 16, I belong to a networking organization called BNI, and there is this 3-step process that we say: visibility, credibility, and profitability. As I was talking to Wit, who's another BNI member, he said it's exactly the same with the video. So the more videos you create, the more value you create for your audience, more credible you are, and the more credible you are, the more sales you get. But the first step is visibility. So you have to create more and more so the videos so that people start trusting you. I'm using the audio format, and I also use video as in time where I need to add value to the customer. But video is one big part of it, and increasing visibility through video and audio today should become a big part of your marketing strategy. Number 17, think about what I can do that my customer wants to hear. So how can I create a video that will be solution centric, customer centric, rather than me saying, I've been there many years, I've been in this business, I know. Nobody cares about that. Nobody cares who you are. Everybody cares what you can do for them. And that essentially should be all your content strategy, because consumers never have time. I have done strategies I've done how good I am. But does that matter to the consumer? No, it does not matter to the consumer. It's what problem you're solving. Number 18. And this, I believe, is the most important one for startup marketing. And this is something that I've heard every startup marketer talk about. Or forget that startup marketer, the founder is a startup marketer who's struggling with funding, who's trying to get his first 1,000 or 2,000 customers. The best marketing is organic marketing, and the best organic marketing is getting your product right. You will have lots of customers coming to your product, who's testing your product, who's seeing your product. You have an acquisition cost. They will come to your website, or you're talking about tech. They will come to your website through some paid acquisition. And then what happens? Your product is not good. It is easy to get customers from digital platforms like Facebook and Google and other channels, but they are expensive. The best and the cheapest way of marketing is word of mouth. I took a product, I experienced a product, I love that product, I go tell 10 people about it. And if I do not like that product, no matter what you do, I'm not going to come back. Go back to the point I made about retention. Or making the customer come back. It's very difficult. So it is important that in the first phase of your startup, your marketing is your product. And the best way to market that product is organic. Number 19. You have to be really good with numbers, and you have to have a love of numbers and obsess about numbers to be good in marketing. This may sound a little contradictory. Of course, this may not be, you cannot have a data driven, maybe more of a data informed marketing. But if you're not comfortable with numbers, it's about you get a team member who's comfortable with numbers. You get a marketing partner who's comfortable with numbers. Because without numbers, today digital marketing does not exist. And a digital marketing forms a big chunk of marketing mix today. As I keep saying, marketing today is a mix of art, science, and maths. Gone are the days when it was just a lot of art. My last point, what is right for the customer is also good for companies. Today's customer, today's consumer, especially the millennials and younger generation, prefer to interact with companies that are mission driven and whom they trust. Greta Thunberg, all of these people are the people of the new generation. My son or anybody, they may be consumers, but they only will associate themselves if you stand for a cause. And you cannot do something that harms them. So do what is right for the customer, and what is right for the customer is also right for the company, and that is good for the company. That's the top 20 points that I thought. If you feel there are a lot more, please listen to my other podcasts. Please share it with me. I'm more than willing to listen to them and give you my feedback. It was an amazing year. I had so much of learning. It was fantastic. Thank you once again for coming and supporting my podcast. I would not have reached here without your support. I would not have done 33 episodes without your support. Here's wishing your family and you and entire loved ones an amazing 2021. I know we are going through some harrowing times as human beings, but I think and I feel and I'm sure there is light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you once again. Season's greeting and a happy new year.